All right. Well, hello. And if you're listening to this from your favorite podcast player, I just want to tell you that we are recording this as a video. I don't always do that, but we're recording this as a video. So you can jump over to the YouTube channel and or go to the Paralegal Bootcamp's website and watch this on video. So I've got a special guest with me today. His name is Jim Sullivan, and he's the co-founder of eDiscovery AI. And the reason I wanted him on the show is we had a call about a week or so, I guess it was, and literally spoke about AI for over an hour. The trends, what we're seeing, what we're thinking, and I thought to myself, I should have pushed the record button then. So we decided that it would be good for both of us to get together and share this information with you, with paralegals. You can share this with your attorneys, and you're going to get a lot out of this episode. So, all right, well, welcome, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
Well, so in addition to being the co-founder of eDiscovery AI, you are an attorney. And so I'm just curious how it is, because it's not a usual path where an attorney becomes a co-founder of a legal tech company. So how did that happen?
Well, I mean, I've always been kind of a nerd. I went to college for computer science. So, right off the bat, I had a little bit of a non-traditional background. But it really started with my first job out of law school was doing doc review. And the first thing I saw was like, holy cow, this is something that has so much room for improvement. And that is what kind of led down the path of using technology to improve doc review. So for about 10 years, I worked on using predictive coding, analytics, other tools to classify documents, and then just really fell perfectly into using AI to do the same. And it just came down to AI is just so good at reviewing and classifying documents that it completely changes the game for how we're going to do this in the future.
Well, that's a good segue. So we are going to talk mostly about AI, but for the people who are curious about it, they might not know the difference because I hear that used interchangeably. What is the difference between, when it comes to eDiscovery at least, predictive coding and AI? How is AI different?
It's really not that much different. It's just a lot better. And both of these are technology assisted review where you're using technology to predict and make classifications on documents. The only difference from our traditional predictive coding is using machine learning where you're training positive and negative examples. Say I'm looking for this, not looking for that. Where with AI, you can just use natural language to describe what you want. So it's a lot easier just because you don't have to train the machine in any way. A lot faster because you can just tell it what you're looking for and it finds it. And just a lot better because it just has a much higher level of accuracy than anything we've ever seen before.
Are you telling it in real terms versus Boolean or something like that?
Yeah. It's just literally saying, we're taking a request for production or a reviewer instructions or something that, you might see, presented with you saying, I want to find all documents where, this employee is talking to this employee saying X, Y, and Z, or I need to find all documents where someone at this company is talking about manipulating interest rates, for example. Or I need to find all documents where this person said something inappropriate to someone else. So I just describe it just like that. I type out saying, find me all documents where person A is talking to person B about a topic. And that's it. And anything that you can explain in natural language, the AI can understand and classify. And it goes to understanding sentiment. Find me emails where Jim is upset about something. Find me emails where somebody's threatening somebody. I'd like to be creative and say, find me emails that were sent on a Tuesday morning by a person whose first name begins with a vowel and responded to on a Wednesday afternoon by a person whose last name starts with a T. And it's able to understand and identify documents for just about any use case.
Okay. All right. Well, one more question on that part before we actually jump in, because that brings me to another point. So I have a mix of listeners and followers, whether it's on YouTube or social media or whatever. And it's a broad range of paralegals who work in big law, AmLaw 100 firms, and also paralegals who work for solo practitioners and very small firms. Is it going to be something that the small firm people will be able to implement, or is it still kind of up there in pricing?
I would say that right now, depending on how your small firm is doing doc review and preparing docs for production, if you're using a platform like Relativity, or you're using a larger scale platform that's doing that, I would say this is absolutely an appropriate use case. But for the most part, I would think that most of the listeners that are going to be interested in this are going to be working at those larger firms that are doing it. But I think we'll get into a lot of other AI uses that will be absolutely perfect for those small time solo practitioner firms.
Okay. All right. Good to know. So let's talk about ChatGPT. Kind of just going to stick with that for today because I'm going to have to do a whole other episode about all of the AI tools, but just we'll use AI interchangeably with ChatGPT. The reason I want to pick that one is because, well, that's what I'm most familiar with. And it's only been out. So we're recording this July 2024. So it's only been out a year and 8 months. Is that right? A year and less than 2 years. And when I think of what it has gone through in the different iterations or versions already in just a year and 8 months, it's just crazy. What would you say to people, whether it's lawyers or paralegals, who might be saying, because I've heard them say it, well, we'll just wait 5 or 10 years and, let it work out, let it work the kinks out and, we'll worry about it in 5 or 10 years.
Man, 5 or 10 years? I don't even know. When we talk about things, we talk about maybe 6 months. I couldn't imagine waiting that long because the question I would ask is why? Why would you wait? This is a tool that can help you make your job easier, make your work product better, make everything you're doing faster, more efficient, and improving it. So, why would you hold off? It would be like, yeah, the internet's here, but I'm not going to use it for a while to see how it kind of works its way out. Because, the truth is, even the day one that it came out, it has the ability to solve so many problems that we could not solve in the past in the legal industry. And that's really what the first thing we saw. Like I mentioned, I worked with predictive coding for so long, and there's a lot of things that predictive coding doesn't do well. It's problems that predictive coding can't solve. Documents that don't have text, documents, foreign language handling is very difficult. Documents that are talking about certain contexts, finding key docs, hot docs, and things like that. And AI can solve so many of these so quickly. And so that goes, even if you're not using it in doc review, even if you're using it for other things, even if you're using it as brainstorming ideas, this is the most powerful tool we've seen in my lifetime for sure. And it can come up with ideas, draft motions for you. It can develop arguments for you. It can do all these things. And just my question would be, why would you not want to use a tool that's going to make your life easier if you have the opportunity?
What about the firms that, because I've got a mix of them in my litigation boot camp, a mix of people where they work for firms who have said, you're not allowed to use it because of the scare thing with the case in New York that was cited wrong. Either you're not allowed to use it or access it, or just wait for us. We're putting together a committee. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, you obviously got to follow the rules where you're working. No one's thinking, let's forget about that and let's do what we want. But and we actually are working with a couple law firms in building them a custom version of ChatGPT that's behind the firewall, so they have control over the data and have sort of privacy behind that. So that makes sense. And I totally get why a large firm would want to be able to put in policies in place and before they're going to jump forward with this, because there are a couple risks. But overall, I think the risks are greatly exaggerated. And, I get why if you have a firm with 500 employees that you need to have a policy that a lot of people can understand. But if you're in a small firm with a couple people, you just don't have the same concerns, because it just requires some common sense. It requires you to, when you're having AI create something, read what it creates before you use it as your own. And that's just seems like such common sense to everyone. Don't have AI write a motion for you that you then submit without reading. And I don't think any of us would expect that we would do that, but that's what happens. That someone did that, and then it comes out as AI hallucinates and makes up stuff. And the answer is, well, of course you have to read and verify what the AI created before you can use it as your own. And that's where I think if you just go in with the mentality that AI is here to help me. I have a problem and I ask it to generate something. I want it to write a brief. I want it to generate, create a motion. I want it to create ideas of arguments for a certain situation. But you're always going to use what it created for you as a starting point for you to then finish the work. It's creating a draft that you then can go in and you can modify as you see fit and make sure that it's hitting on all the points you have. If you're going to have it write a motion for you and it can write that motion in 15 seconds, and then you read the motion and you have to make a few small changes, that's a huge win. That's a huge cost savings. That's something that we want everyone to be able to take advantage of. But yes, you do have to take that secondary step of making sure that it's correct. Making sure that it's everything it's saying is accurate and true. It's not missing any of the arguments you need to make, and all the citations are true and correct. And that's just something you're always going to want to do to verify. Anytime that any person or computer is making any work product for you, you want to verify it first before you use it.
Yeah, I would kind of equate that motion, the thing in New York, with a partner at a law firm asking a first-year associate to draft a motion, and then the partner just signs off on it and files it.
Yeah,
Right?
and you have to be responsible for the work product you create. And if you're a paralegal at a firm and someone's asking you to create a first draft of any sort of document, having AI create that early draft and then reading through it and just tweaking it to make sure that it's correct, that you're verifying all the citations and all the arguments are sound, that's just saves you a lot of time. But no, it doesn't do the final work for you. And I think that as long as you understand that piece of it, which I think is a lot of it's just common sense, is you're not going to have any of those problems.
One of the things that I've been doing, I'm putting together a training program on it that's specific for paralegals. And just the other day, I thought to myself, okay, I've got to come up with all these different use cases. What can you use it for? It's not just about drafting a motion, right? And for the brand new litigation paralegal, I thought, let me test it a little bit. And I went in there and said, I'm a brand new litigation paralegal, and I've been asked to file a notice of removal from state court to federal court. I'm in Florida, or I can't remember the exact, so I gave it a little bit of information, not specific. There wasn't any prompt engineering or anything like that. Please explain to me the step-by-step process of getting this removal filed. And it got it. It literally, I asked it for very specific details, and it cited the correct rule. It gave the step-by-step. And I thought, that could be really helpful for whether it's new paralegals or new associates, right? Who, instead of jumping into a Facebook or LinkedIn group asking random people, you might be able to get through some of that struggle those first couple of years by using it for that.
I literally use it for every question I have in the world. I have it open all day, and anytime I'm thinking of, I need to do something, I don't know how, I just ask it, and it gets the right answer 90% of the time. How do I like your, how do you write a certain, or the steps to complete a certain task is really good. The other thing you mentioned is, you're saying you had to put together a list of use cases for AI. And the first thing I would do is I would just go to AI and say, write me a list of use cases for AI for paralegals.
I did.
And then it's going to give you a list. And I think we all understand right now that it's probably going to give you a list of, 5 to 10 things that are great, a few things that you're like, that's not great. And then it's probably missing a few things that you want. But it's a starting point that really gets you going, helps you start thinking about what it is that you have, and you think, oh, it has that. I also came up with another idea of my own based on what it told me. And it gets you so far in that first step. And I know personally that first step's often the hardest, is where do I begin? How do I get started? What's the first idea? And then once you get going, it really goes from there. And so, yeah, I have it come up with, names for ideas for a name for a dog, ideas for arguments to make in this scenario. Or if you can describe a situation and say, yep, what are the steps? Or draft me an outline for what I should do for this type of motion or brief or anything you want to write. It's just fantastic. And I always tell people, worst case is it gives you something that's not great that you can't use, and you didn't you wasted 15 seconds of your time.
Yeah. In fact, I used it. I have it open all day too. I used it this morning because I got an email from an attorney yesterday from another country. And it was a little bit, I don't want to say tart, but it, had some implication on expecting a response back. And I didn't get the email till this morning. And so I literally jumped into chat and copied and pasted his email, my initial email, his email, and said, help me craft a polite response, but so that they understand that our country was on holiday yesterday. And it did it.
Yeah,
Like,
and I
I
love
didn't
what
have
you
to,
can
I could have
style.
drafted it. I've been drafting stuff like that all my life, but it comes up with different ways of wording it that give you ideas.
Yeah, and I love that you can kind of frame that, write it as a polite email, write it as a stern email, write it as a, a little more aggressive. So you can choose the tone, and it's going to draft it, and then you can read it, and if you need to make modifications, you can. Yeah, there's such an easy implementation of it. And a lot of things we talk about, people and lawyers and people in the legal industry are fundamentally afraid of risk, afraid of, what if it does something wrong? And the answer is, what if it would have written your email poorly? What if it told the person terrible things, was rude, was impolite? The answer is you would read it before you send it, and you would not send it if it was not right. And
Right.
it's like that. I don't see how you would consider there to be any risk of that use case.
Well, with all these use cases, so I have to say, when chat first came out, still can't believe it was only a year and 8 months ago. Not when it first came out, but I want to say in the December timeframe, I think.
I think that was when
It's,
version 4 came out, and 3.5 was a little earlier, but it just had a lot of.
yeah,
It wasn't nearly as good, so
yeah.
it kind of on the same timeline as you are.
So when it first came out, I actually said, somebody's probably going to quote me. I said, AI is not going to take paralegal jobs. And there are just too many things that paralegals do that AI can't do. And it was more of the complex issues and that kind of stuff, communicate with clients and all that. Then I went on the paid version, and it's now been upgraded and upgraded. And I've run it, I've used Perplexity and Copilot, but mostly chat. Then I had to revise that and say, all right, it's not AI you got to worry about. It's the paralegals who know how to use AI to do their job better who could take your jobs. Now, when I'm looking at what you're using it for, should I be eating those words entirely? Like, it's everything that you're talking about, drafting motions, doing these first round things are things that new associates and paralegals are doing. And so what's going to prevent job loss?
Yeah, and I mean, I think everything you said is basically true, but the outcome of this is that one paralegal could do the work of three or four. Now you're not spending hours writing a brief or motion, you're spending minutes and then spending minutes updating it. And as you get better at it and you start understanding what it's good at, you can do it even faster. And so naturally I would expect that, yeah, if one paralegal is that much more efficient, it would generally expect that you'd have less people needed in the industry. And that does get to what you mentioned of that it's going to be the people with those skills that take your job. It's not going to be the AI that takes your job. And that's why I think it is just important, just like anything, to be knowledgeable about, new technology, knowledgeable about these tools. And I see this as kind of a new age where people that are eager to jump into these positions and understand these skills and these tools are at a huge advantage in the industry. And it puts you in a place where now you can do the work of multiple people, that you really become much more valuable as as an individual, because you're using these tools. And if you go with the plan of let's just wait 5-10 years, see what happens, you're kind of at the mercy of what happens. If
Yeah.
you're not really involved with controlling what happens, you're kind of at the mercy of what other people are going to do, and maybe by then everyone already has the experience they need.
Yeah, I would share a conversation I had just a couple of weeks ago with a partner at a big law firm, an AmLaw 10 type firm, who I asked if he's using AI, and he's thankful that he's coming towards the end of his career, at least in the next 5 or 10 years, he says. But so his response was, yeah, using it, but not learning the intricacies of it, because at my bill rate of $800 to $1,000 an hour, clients aren't paying me to learn how to use AI. That's what I want my associates and my paralegals to do. And that got me thinking that there is going to be, where if a client is paying a lawyer $800 an hour, that's for that high level strategy thinking, right? And if that partner can then better use their time because their associates and paralegals are using AI to the fullest, maybe there's less paralegals and less associates, but they're going to be the ones, these partners who don't want to or can't take the time to learn it are going to need associates and paralegals who do, right?
I mean, it just kills me to hear that a person who's billing $800 an hour is not taking advantage of all the technology because they're not as good as they could be if they were using technology. And the idea that it kind of sounds like, well, I need to, by using technology, the one thing I hear a lot is that if I can now write a motion in half the time I was before, now how am I going to bill for as much? And so it does create a little bit of an issue with now, are you going to bill half as much time for every task you do and basically not make any more money because now you're just completing twice as much, but in the same time window? How does that really benefit your firm? And I think that it's going to kind of become an issue because your clients are going to demand it. They're going to say that I expect you to be using the latest technology and saving me money as a result. And using technology and billable hours oftentimes don't really match. I'm saving time, so now I'm charging you less, but I don't want to make less. And so I find a way to not save time. And I think that is a problem I see in the legal industry as a whole. And, especially when we talk about document review, where all of these law firms are making so much money off of the billable hours required or incurred from doc review that now what incentive do they have to save their clients money? And what we're seeing mostly is the clients are telling them that they have to. And the law firms are kind of dragging their feet in some ways. But it just creates a kind of an issue that, I don't know how it gets resolved, but I think that ultimately the clients are going to expect and demand that they get to reap the rewards and the cost savings that come with this.
Yeah, I would think so too. And I've always said when someone says, how do you change something that's happening in the legal industry, it's always client dictated. It's driven by what the client says. And I've heard the same thing, clients saying, tell me what your use of AI is and how it's going to make you more efficient in representing me.
That's literally our message. We go to service providers and we tell them, your clients are going to ask you how you're using AI. And if you have an answer now, great. If you don't have an answer now, you definitely want to be ready with that answer, and we can help you develop that answer.
Do you see, like, if there's the firms who are kind of dragging their feet on it, and it might be related to billable hours, it might not, whatever. I get it, the scare. When you're in a big firm and you have 500 employees all using ChatGPT for something, and they could accidentally be uploading information to it. I guess the enterprise version, it's not, public or whatever. But I see it to where the ones who are dragging their feet, the smaller firms could win on that because they're more agile, they're quicker to be able to implement some of these technologies, and they could actually compete a little bit better with some of the larger firms.
I think AI is one of the biggest biggest things we have out there to kind of level that playing field. A lot of what we're talking to with contract reviewers and doc review as a whole is now you can have a very small vendor who's able to compete with the biggest companies in the space, where you don't need to have a review space for 200 contract reviewers to take a review job. You can now do it with AI with 3 people. And it basically empowers a smaller group of people to perform like a larger group of people and now be able to compete in a space. I heard a line that I probably won't forget is a lot of people believe the first billion-dollar company that's run by one individual is going to happen soon as a result of AI, where you're going to have a one-person business that ends up being worth over $1 billion just because of the power that one person can get using AI. And all of the things that they can accomplish with it. Where right now, I'm not sure what the largest, single person enterprise in the world that has ever been, but it's certainly less than $1 billion. But this opens the doors for small players to be more competitive, and I do see it as a little bit of a gold rush where there's these new avenues where these small players can get in early while the bigger firms are dragging their feet. And I don't know how you're gonna kind of. I think the early adopters are going to really make out big, and I think that the bigger firms that are dragging their feet are going to lose out on a lot as a result of it.
What do you think about if it's less paralegals and less associates, what do you think about the staffing companies who are staffing those document reviews? That was the first thing I thought of when I saw what the technology could do, like the eDiscovery reviews, something like your software.
I mean, that's there, and there's 45,000 doc reviewers in the United States, and I just think that in the long run, in the 5-year plan, that most of those positions are no longer going to be available. I mean, the fact is that computers are better at classifying documents. So the job of classifying documents, now the job of preparing cases and putting together your depot prep and your exhibits and all of that is still going to be needed, but you're not going to need a team of 100 reviewers to do that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be a huge shift in the industry, but I think you can look around the country and around all industries, and you're going to see that same exact thing. You're not going to need a person that's taking orders in the drive-thru. You're not going to need people that answer phone calls and are receptionists. You're not going to need there's just so many industries that we're seeing this, jobs that AI can do better than people. And it's jobs that are repetitive, jobs that are generally, done by, they're lower paying jobs that are repetitive that computers can just excel at. And that's where I think the entire economy is going to be in for a pretty significant change in the future.
Well, then how could, and I want to stick with paralegals in particular on this one. I guess associates would fall in the same thing, but I think paralegals specifically, how do they insulate themselves? How do they insulate their career and say, okay, knowing that this is, it's not going to be in the next couple of years, right? But how do I insulate my career to make sure I'm the one when this does hit the fan in a couple of years, I'm insulated?
And I think that we're going to see a pretty big shift in doc review within the next 2 years. I don't think it's going to take, it's not going to take a long time, just because what we're seeing as people start using this is that light bulb go off saying, oh, I can just use this in the future. It's so much better than any option, and all of my docs get reviewed in a matter of a couple hours. They just say, yeah, this is so much easier, so much better. Why would I ever go back to the stress of managing, dozens of people, the staffing, the space requirements, the managing them, the turnover, all of those things where now I can just finish an entire review in a day with a couple people. The answer is you got to be those couple people. You have to be, there's going to be people that are knowledgeable about AI that can do a 1,000,000 doc review in a matter of a few days. And you want to be the one that has those skills. You want to be the one that understands the technology that's using it, because when one person can replace the work of 10, being that one person is what you want to be. So I think it's just understanding the technology and being willing to learn new things and kind of step out of your comfort zone and try new things. Because I see that those reviews that are 1,000,000 document reviews that are done by, a team of 50 reviewers over the course of months are going to be done by 3 people over the course of weeks. And those 3 people are going to have great jobs and are going to be in exactly the skill sets that paralegals have right now. It's not anything outside of what you already know how to do. It's not incredibly challenging to learn given your already existing skill set. As you know, with putting in requests, prompt engineering is a pretty scary term, but that really is just telling the AI what you're looking for and being in a position where you know what you're looking for. So I think that the paralegals are in a fantastic position to be at the forefront of being the ones that are driving the AI to be used for legal purposes, and the people that are aggressive and understand how to do that are going to be very, very valuable.
I agree. And I think back to the days back when I actually had to do document reviews, and then when I managed document reviewers. So 2 different aspects here. So I would manage it. I'd have a room full of them. And the whole idea was within the first few hours to go in and look and see what they reviewed and what was right and wrong, and then give them feedback. That was wrong. This is wrong. This is right. And to do that for the first few days, just the managing of it, how many were wrong? And so when I hear people say, yeah, but how can a machine get it right? It's like, well, you've got 40 people sitting in a room. Every one of those are making different decisions based on their own interpretation. So they're just as wrong.
The quality of doc review is something that has been known to be pretty terrible. We're generally seeing that humans recall 70% of the relevant material in a data set. And we've just known for a long time that we're just missing 25 to 30% of all relevant data in every doc review, and is what it is. And the AI can find 90% or 95% or more in a lot of cases. I have never beaten the AI in reviewing documents. I have reviewed a set of my own documents for issues that I'm aware of. I sent out the emails and I had AI review the same documents, and it did significantly better than I did. And even documents where I looked at and I thought that I was right, the AI explained the justification for how it made the decision, and I realized why I was wrong. So that piece, I just don't think that, where we are today, I cannot beat the AI on things that I know better than anyone else in the world. If you're going to grab a random person off the street or a contract reviewer that's not knowledgeable, they're not going to have a chance. And we're already seeing every single time we do a comparison of humans versus AI, the humans get absolutely embarrassed. It's always significantly better. And the difference between, the humans missing 25% of the relevant material and the AI missing 5% of the relevant material, the docs the AI miss are the debatable docs, the docs where you look at and two people could disagree easily. The docs the humans miss, honestly, could just be anything. They miss things. Good docs, bad docs, it doesn't matter. It's flip a coin sometimes. What I think is interesting, though, is what you described, that process where you have reviewers start and then you evaluate their work and you provide them instructions on how to improve. That's the exact process we're using with AI. Instead of having it take days or weeks at the beginning of a review, it takes hours. So you're coming up with a set of instructions for what you're asking for. You have AI review a small sample of documents for that set. You then review the results just like you would QC your first level reviewers. You figure out what the AI is getting wrong and you update your instructions to account for that, correct that mistake, and then you run it again. And now you're basically going through that same process of having the reviewer, which in this case is going to be AI, look at documents, evaluating the results of their work, and then making corrections to correct where they may have had a misunderstanding, and then continuing on. And now, instead of having that process using 50 reviewers where you're QCing small batches of every single one of them, taking weeks to do, you're QCing one AI that's taking, you can have it review 500 documents. It comes back in 10 minutes. You review the work that it did, you update what your instructions were, have it review more documents and look at the results. And you're doing that over the course of maybe a day or, maybe even, 2 to 3 hours of work tops. But so you still understand that process of providing instructions, evaluating what the work product from those instructions are, and then updating your instructions to account for misunderstandings. So it's just that we're speeding up the process dramatically, then we're finishing the entire review. But that job that I just described is the job that we're talking about, where one person can now be essentially doing the work of a huge team, because that one person is still performing all of the steps. It's just the reviewers review 1 million docs a day instead of 1 million docs a year.
To me, that sounds exciting if I were I'm kind of envious that I'm not a paralegal, a litigation paralegal anymore, or a paralegal manager, because I think to myself, if back in the day when I was actually physically reviewing them, or I always reviewed them, even if I was going to be managing the project, I always reviewed a big data set first so that I would know when they were asking questions about things. So I'd always have some part of the review. But more so when you're trying to find that needle in a haystack, I think back to the days, even with summation, concordance, access to relativity, all of those tools, you would still go in and say, author equals Jim Sullivan, recipient equals Ann Pearson, and you'd pull up maybe 500 documents and you'd have to review every one of those. And for me, that was the most boring thing in the world, to sit there, because I fall asleep when I read. So I would literally be going
that's why that's why they're missing 25 to 30% of stuff, is because you're falling asleep when you read, and you're I guarantee you are one of the highest performing reviewers you have. Imagine what the low performing reviewers are doing.
Yeah.
That explains so much of what makes it difficult for humans to do this. But yeah, that's the exciting part, because now You can do that. You can do a search for all emails authored by one person, recipients another. And now instead of looking at them, you can just say, hey, AI, look for these types of things in these documents. Go. You can go get yourself a coffee, come back, and all the docs will be done being reviewed. And then you can look at what documents hit on what you're looking for and do the analysis. So you're doing the analysis portion, you're doing the strategy portion, you're doing the planning. You're not doing the boring piece. And I think that just sounds exciting. That sounds fun. Where now imagine if you had 1 million document data sets and you could just go into that like you would attack a normal case. You can do some junk searches, cull out newsletters, anything that's just is going to be worthless. You can then find documents to or from particular people, have AI look for particular issues with that. You can kind of break down the data set into a number of different things and be able to review it. But there's so much strategy that goes into that. This isn't just like, oh yeah, the AI is the easy button doing it. It's that person that has to put forth that work and understand the case and understand what they're looking for and understand what the key documents are. But it doesn't require 50. That's the difference.
I have to tell you this funny story. Talk about document reviewers that I just thought about. So back in the day, as a paralegal manager, I had this room full of people, and this was a while ago. So where we still had a TV that was on a cart, the big push cart.
I remember those. Those were, man, high school. We still had those. So
yeah, and I mean, this was like 2009, maybe 2008. Yeah. So it was a while ago, but it wasn't like it was in the 1980s. Anyways, it was kept by our hospitality team in one of the small like conference room areas upstairs. And we had the other rooms were filled with document reviewers. And I go in to check on them one day and they've got Jerry Springer playing on the TV. They'd gotten the TV from the other room and had Jerry Springer on. I'm like, you guys can't watch Jerry Springer while you're doing a document review. And so I unplugged the TV and come back the next day, they've got Oprah on. And I'm like, what are you doing? I said you can't watch TV. And they're like, no, you said we couldn't watch Jerry Springer.
I saw that coming right from there. You didn't say you couldn't watch Oprah. That seems like...
It was crazy. Anyways, I think that it's going to be an exciting time, like not just for eDiscovery, but like taking the grunt work out of the stuff that at least I didn't like to do at all as a paralegal. So let me ask you, kind of like to close it out, some personal uses. Because to me, I think if a paralegal who's not using it at all, maybe you're not allowed to use it. Take your phone, get the app on your phone, on your lunch break. Just you start using it for small, little, even personal things to get comfortable with it. So, what kind of personal things do you use it for?
So, and I always tell people, it's like, every time that people use predictive coding, their first case was on a case that was like this massive, we have this huge matter now. This is the, biggest case we've ever done. We need to use predictive coding because it's too big. And I'm just like, guys, you should be using it on cases that don't matter. So when it gets to the big case, you know how to use it. Don't practice on your big case. And that's exactly the same. You practice on the things that aren't nearly as important. And I mean, I say not nearly as important because a lot of times they're even more important. But my first use cases was always using it with my kid. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and having her write stories for her was the first case where you can say, write a story about a 9-year-old who's a princess in the land of whatever, and there's dragons and unicorns and whatever it is you want, and it will write you up a story. And you can also have it create pictures. And that's the one thing that she loved more than anything was describing something, having it draw. Like, oh, have it draw a cat riding a unicorn jumping over a rainbow. And then it creates it in a second and a half, and she's super excited. And then it always goes down the, now do it. And I'll just tell you, every single time, like 4 iterations in, it always ended up with something poop related. But she thought it was hilarious, and I can't be mad. So that was fun. But yeah, using it to create stories, using it to draw pictures, just have it come up with crazy things that you can think of to have it draw. So my kid really, really liked using it for those use cases. A couple things that I definitely use it for is to settle arguments sometimes when you're two people arguing something that's not necessarily a complete fact that you can prove. Having AI be the judge of those debates is something that I just think is kind of a neat use case. Along with, answering questions, using it as your helper. When I need to, we have a website business that, if I need to set up forwarding on a domain using a certain, email host, I ask it how to do it and then walk through the steps. And so those types of use cases where you're just using it to see what the type of output looks like, that's really valuable, because then you start playing around with it. You realize, oh, I can have it write a story in the tone of a child or in a tone of an adult, or I can have it write something, talk to it, talk to me like you're, an 80-year-old woman, or talk to me like you're a 5-year-old child, or talk to me like this. And it really helps you understand how it works and gets a feel for how things happen with it. And that, I think, is just a really great way to get comfortable with new technology in a way that is fun and not, a high risk situation where there's any real negative consequences. Now, no doubt my kid's going to be super mad if the story sucks, but overall, I think that's something that we can handle. So
exactly.
I think those are the best use cases I had. I always I taught a class. My parents live in a retirement village in Arizona, and I was talking to them about all the use cases, and we tested out things like write happy birthday to an 8-year-old boy who likes Roblox, or draw me a picture for a kid that likes this. The other thing that I think was fantastic is they all love taking pictures of their family, uploading it into ChatGPT and saying, make all of us Pixar characters, or make all of us superheroes, because then it will draw a picture with, your family as superheroes or Pixar characters, things like that. So fun things that I think that people enjoy, people see it, they want you to do more. So I just think that it's almost like you need the ideas of a kid to come up with new things to draw, because it turns into, then draw, now make a picture where we're all babies. Now make us a picture where we're all old people. Now make us a picture where we're all, kings or royalty. And it just you go down that rabbit hole, and it's fun.
I like that. I hadn't heard that before. So I usually tell people, at least use it anytime you think you're going to Google something, use it then. Because to me, you can get an answer without going down what I call the Google rabbit hole. That's just going to send you to, just questions about like your dog having an ear infection, or what to do for your dog for fireworks, right? I did that yesterday.
Can my dog, the number of times I've had, can a cat eat this, is very frequent.
Yeah. And if you were to go to Google and put that in, it would come up with all kinds of cat food commercials and links to blog articles about cats. And it's just because they've got good SEO rankings that you're going to that site. So
I think it is going to, and obviously Google knows this. I think it's going to really, the company that owns AI is going to be the next biggest company in the world. We're seeing NVIDIA already, but like that, I think Google, that the search, the value of owning search is certainly dropped with the adoption of AI, and they've already moved on with their, adoption of Gemini and trying to capture some of that. But I think we're seeing kind of this arms race of AI models, which is another thing that I think is super fun, as you have Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT and other things that are coming out. But that's just cool. But I do think that search is not going to be the way it is for very long, because AI is so good. And I have seen that, I think Google even started putting AI results in their search results at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is there any place in particular or thing that you could recommend other than using it for personal use? Like, how did you learn how to use it for the things you're using it for?
That's it. Starting out with using it for personal use to understand what it can do, but then having it, I have a screen that is open all day. And the thing that I started out with, I thought that was the most helpful, was brainstorming. When I said, I'm writing a blog article about eDiscovery, give me 10 ideas of topics that I can write it. And then it'll come up with 10. And then I say, okay, for that topic, can you write me an outline for, what types of things I might want to discuss? So I'm not even having it really create content as much as just giving me the ideas that I can use as a starting point. And that, the number of times that comes up, and the number of times my wife will say, hey, give me some ideas for X, Y, and Z, immediately goes to ChatGPT, and I just absolutely steal the ideas that it provides. So just having it as kind of that assistant sitting next to you at your desk, helping brainstorm, answer questions is absolutely where you want to begin, because then you just start thinking a little bit more of, well, if it could do that, can it do this? Can I then do this? And you start to realize it can pretty much do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
the new use cases too, the ability to do audio, ability to generate images in addition to understanding images, creating charts, creating graphs, understanding data. And I will tell you that the best use case for me is the coding. So if you don't do any computer programming or maybe do some, you can have ChatGPT write programs for you. You can, write me a program that's a tic-tac-toe game. Write me a program that's a, rock, paper, scissors game. And I use it for all of my coding now, where it's at least gets me that starting point of building solutions for things.
I just heard a podcast episode just the other day that there was a professor gave 10 of his students an assignment. I can't remember why this was on in a podcast, but I think it was like an SEO podcast about where AI is taking SEO, but gave non-computer tech majors an assignment and said, go to ChatGPT and get it to write you Python code to do XYZ that was nothing related to, they had no technology. And you've got 3 days to learn how to do it, to write this code. And they all completed the assignment. And that was the professor's way of saying, this is why you need to learn how to use it.
And I know a lot of people that are like, well, I'm not a programmer, I'm not a coder, I can't do this. But then the question is, ask ChatGPT, say, I want to make a computer program that does this. Walk me through the steps one by one. And I guarantee you that within an hour, you'll have that program. And start out with something simple. Start out with make me a tic-tac-toe game. And if you don't understand what you need to do to run a Python program, ask ChatGPT, what do I have to do to write a Python program? And then have it create it and have it do it. And I think that if you took away everything else and it could only do code, it would be still the best tool that we've had in our lifetime. Because now the ability to develop things faster and faster is just opening the door to more and more things, where it's kind of that snowball effect of now AI allows us to create more faster, which allows us to create better AI, which then allows us to create more faster yet. And then eventually if we get to a point where AI starts creating stuff on its own, it kind of goes down a road where now, you get the technology improvements that you'd see in 10 years might happen in a week, because AI can work all day, all night, and not have to worry about getting tired or sleeping or watching Oprah.
Mm-hmm. Or Jerry Springer. All right, one last question, and then I'll let you go, which kind of leads me to that. So we started with, it's been a year and 8 months. What do you see the effect on AI will have on the legal profession in the next 1 year and 8 months?
In the next 1 year, I don't think we're going to see any dramatic changes in the next year. I think we're going to start seeing more and more people moving towards their plan of adoption. You're going to see more companies and large organizations that put together policies for AI use, how it's going to be implemented, and they're going to start going down the path. And we're seeing it right now, especially, almost every large organization we work with is putting together a plan for how they're going to start using generative AI, how they're going to allow their employees to use it, how it's going to be customized. But within the next year, I don't think we're going to see any dramatic shifts. We're going to see some people that are going to be starting to use AI more and more in document reviews. It's not going to be every case. It's not going to be a huge portion of the industry, but it's going to start being more and more as we go. And then I think you're going to see paralegals and lawyers start using it more on their day-to-day lives. And you're going to see other programs, technologies that we have a lot of cool things now where, you can do contract analysis or investigations, or that you can do case research using different AI tools out there. And I think you're going to see more and more of those develop. But I'd say the legal industry probably isn't going to be in for any massive shift for a few years. But I think if you look 5 to 10 years down the road, what we see now is going to be significantly different than what we see in the future. And I think that goes for every industry in the country. But I think the legal industry is probably going to be one of the slower ones, and there's not going to be any overnight switches as much as slow adoptions over time. But you start seeing the progress, and I think it's going to get there pretty soon.
All right, paralegals, you heard it. You've got at least a good year or two. Like, get on this now. Don't wait. Don't wait for everybody else to adopt it. Get on this now.
Well, and be the one that's involved with your organization putting together their policies, into putting together the use cases, into being, everyone that I know that's blocked ChatGPT at a firm is allowing a few people to use AI as test cases that then allows them to figure out how they're going to implement it as a wider organization. So try to be that one that is the early adopters, early use case testing to see how it works for different things, and then providing feedback to the firm to see how it's going to adopt that policy. So be involved and be part of that process, because that's going to be where you want to be once those policies get rolled out to everyone else.
I agree. I agree. All right, Jim. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and information. And if you do you want to put a shout out where people can reach out to you, find you?
Yeah. So my company is eDiscovery AI. It's just eDiscoveryAI.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn anytime. I'm pretty active on there and respond to messages pretty quick. But yeah, just absolutely anyone who's looking for a demo or a discussion, you can find that all on our website.
Great. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me.